Welcome to Momentum's virtual training series, where we invite expert facilitators to share their knowledge on topics that advance women in leadership.
Later. So we'll start with you, Karen. I know that, thank you, Karen Tremay, for being here, and she's with Regions. Would you share quickly what you do at Regions?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me today, guys. Like I said, my name is Karen Tremay. I'm a financial education trainer for Regions Bank. So I work as a part of the community engagement department of Regions. And what we do is we work on helping empower our community by providing financial education, financial resources. So we are here to just help in whatever way we can. So yeah, that's part of my role.
Thank you. And thank you for Regions for being one of our sponsors too. We appreciate that. Judy, would you please share with us why you're here and why you're part of Momentum and what all you do to help women?
Thank you so much, Darla. I honestly appreciate the invitation. It's been a joy working with you. I am a financial well-being coach with Operation Hope. Operation Hope is a nonprofit that's been in existence for about 33 years. It's a global organization in every state throughout the United States, with the exception maybe of about 12. So financial well-being coach is my title. Additionally, I'm a HUD certified housing counselor. And so I meet with individuals, groups, organizations one on one to provide insight in those areas. And so thank you so much again for the opportunity.
Absolutely. Thank you for being here. And Dr. Stephanie Yates, would you please share with us what all you're doing with the community?
That's me. I am Stephanie Yates. I am a finance professor at UAB, and I am the executive director of our Regions Institute for Financial Education. So, in those two roles, I teach and I conduct research on personal finance, but then in through the institute, we have a variety of initiatives. One is we run a VITA, volunteer income tax assistance site in the spring. So we prepare tax returns at no charge for people who qualify within the income guidelines. In fact, we're working right now on our slate of webinars and workshops that we will run for this upcoming year. We try to run 2 or 3 workshops a year, either online or 2 or 3 a month, either online or in person. And obviously, that's not just for women. And some of our workshops are primarily geared towards students, but some are primarily geared towards adults. And there's some messages that just everyone needs to hear. And in the spring, we try to have a symposium where we will bring in either one national speaker or a few speakers so you can hear different voices in this space about um, new financial innovations or just new things to consider when it comes to managing money. And then lastly, and probably where we spend the least amount of time just because it's so time intensive, is we do one-on-one consultations with any member of the community who has a question. I'm a financial planner or certified financial planner, but we try to focus more on just getting people on track and maybe remediation issues. They've got this problem that they need to solve, and not necessarily doing full blown planning, but helping them figure out how to get from where they are to the next level. So a lot of interesting, exciting things that we do. And I think, one of the reasons why I was excited about this session is I think of all of the groups that we serve, I think I enjoy working with women the most. Because I can relate, because I've been there. A lot of times when I teach and talk, I'm talking from personal experience and talking about the mistakes that I made, and
Mhm.
I and wishing that there was some of the opportunities that are available to people now were available to me when I was making all of my mistakes. So doing this, whether it's this webinar or the other services that all three of us have talked about, um, is just very rewarding because you can tell how much it's needed, either from your own personal experience or the feedback that you get from participants.
Mm, thank you so much. So as y'all can tell, we have three experts here. And I love what you said, Dr. Yates, about the different groups of getting the opportunity to be with different people, and how women, I believe we are stepping into our power in this arena, because we realize, yes, we can, and because we see women like you three um, doing it. And I believe that can be the biggest hindrance for all of us, is who's leading in front of us. And that's another reason why I'm so excited about what we're doing today, to show women who is out in front, who is doing what, so that you can know who to go and get in touch with. Where are their resources? And I also appreciate that the fact that with the three of you, if there's something you don't know, I know I've been around all of y'all enough to know, if there's something you don't know, you'll find someone who does, instead of letting somebody struggle with that. And I'm very grateful for that. So let's get started, okay? And I'm gonna ask you, and let's go ahead and start with you, Dr. Yates. So my question for all three of you is, how has being in charge of your finances impacted you personally and professionally in your life as a woman?
Oh, it's absolutely empowering. Again, I speak to people from experience because I think there's so much shame and so many negative feelings that people have about money and managing their own finances. And so all of those things I have felt, I've experienced. And when I started turning the corner and taking control and learning how to do things and being responsible for my household financially, it felt good. And it wasn't easy because, as I tell people all the time, the first step is just getting your head out of the sand and not ignoring it, not saying, oh, that's just something I can't do, this is too hard, I'm not good with math, I'm not good with numbers. And opening the mail and answering the phone and doing all of the things to just start wrapping your arms around your own situation, because everybody's situation is different. Oftentimes I talk to people about setting financial goals, and sometimes we don't even know where to start. We don't know what we don't know. And so I like to give workshops just to give people the lay of the land and say, well, okay, if you want to be a more responsible adult when it comes to your finances, what does that even mean? What are all the different things that you need to be thinking about? So we can't go deep in any of them, because I need you to know the landscape, and then you figure out where you need to go deep. And I think that was when I personally recognized that, that was a big aha moment for me, because I didn't even know what it meant to be financially responsible. I didn't know, that it was more than just having a job. I didn't know that you actually had to pay those bills on time every month, and you actually had to do certain things to protect your credit and so on. So to answer your question again, I would absolutely say that money is power, and not just in the sense of, the folks who make a lot of money have all the power. I mean it in the sense of, if you have control over your money, you know where it's coming from, you know where it's going, you're not spending, you're living within your means. That's very powerful. And that's a message that I share with young people all the time, that if you can understand that early, your financial life as an adult will be a little bit easier. if you can get some basics down early, like when I talk to incoming freshmen, I say, we're going to talk about budgeting, and I know you don't have a whole lot of money to budget, but what we're really talking about is life skills. And we're talking about skills that will serve you very, very well if you can understand them now when the stakes are low. Because I didn't. But when I did, I can honestly tell you my life started changing for the better. So being responsible for my own money and then my family's money has been very empowering, very rewarding in that I was able to make plans to put my kids through college and so that they didn't have student loan debt. I was able to do some things that I never thought as a 20-year-old who was making every mistake possible. I never thought I would be able to do. And I think one of the things that maybe got me started was to start thinking about who I wanted to be financially, what was important to me. And that changes. I talk to people about this a lot too. That changes as you get older. At certain phases of our life, we're worried about getting out of school and getting a good job, and then we're building a family, and then we're planning for retirement, and then we're trying to enjoy retirement and caring for our family along the way. So our financial goals change, but just the fact that you are taking more time to think about what those goals are and how you are going to get there makes a tremendous difference. So
Okay.
that's what all of this has meant to me in my personal life.
I love that. I love how passionate you are about all that. Karen, would you share with us how that has being in charge of all of your finances has impacted you?
I would say, rewarding is one of the first words that comes to mind. I think when I look back and I think of my journey of where it started as an 18-year-old student who came to the US to pursue an education and didn't really know a lot about money, didn't know about credit and how it worked and why you should not just like open a credit card and use it on things like going out with friends and going out to eat and buying stuff. And I didn't understand how those things didn't help build wealth. I think of the journey that I had to go through of, pretty making decisions that really hurt my credit and then having to go on a journey and fixing it. I like doing this activity. If for those of you who are here today, if you could put an emoji or a word to how you feel about your finances, go ahead and put it in the chat. Because I know sometimes it could be like the crazy emoji. Sometimes it could be like frustration. Like, I am so stressed out about this. Like, I don't know where this is going. I have no idea how to take it from here. I remember when my husband and I moved to Alabama about 8 years ago. We were looking at our finances, and at the time he didn't have a job, and we were just like trying to figure it all out. And I remember going into the Regions Bank and sitting with my banker there, and we were talking about all the things that we were having issues with. And it was the first time that I had sat down with someone and I was being vulnerable in this space of saying, I have no idea what to do. Like, I am trying to make it work. I don't know where to go from here. And I remember that she said, Karen, we need a financial strategy. And I was like, ma'am, do you see the $7 in my account? Because I don't understand where financial strategy comes from. With the $7, I don't see that. And I remember her telling me, I want you to take a step back. I don't want you to think about everything that you haven't been able to accomplish quite yet. I want you to think about what can you do today? What can you do in this month? What can you do in 6 months? So she helped me take a step back and look at the bigger picture, right? Look at the goals that we had in life. And that's where goal setting is so important, and kind of create a structure. And she helped me create a plan of how we were going to work on fixing credit to then ultimately try to be debt free so that we can then go into buying a house. And it started a journey, which my husband and I were able to buy our house in December of last year. It
Yay.
it was, and that's why I say rewarding, because it starts a journey, and this house isn't just a roof over our heads, but it's opportunities for our family, for my parents, for them to have somewhere where they can grow old, and so there's a lot of things that come with this journey, and it has had its struggles, it has had its ups, it definitely has had its downs, and I love seeing the emojis coming in.
I do too.
But I want you to know that wherever it may be, life is not constant, right? It changes. And as that changes, your finances change. And so I think one of the things when I think about the impact, it's being prepared and having all as many resources I can possibly have on my tool belt so that when things are good, we're prepared for the good. When things are bad, we have planned ahead for the bad and we know that we have a solid foundation. And that takes time, it takes sacrifice, it takes looking and really answering the question of where are my habits taking me? Because sometimes it can be our habits of how we're using money and where can I make changes so that I can use money better. And I will say my personal financial journey aligned perfectly with the professional journey when I started working for Regions, which is 8 years ago. I found out really quickly that a lot of my customers that I were working with were just as lost. And it was one
Mhm.
of those, we're going to figure this out together. And so now part of what I'm super passionate about is sharing what resources we have, sharing what tools, and how that building that relationship with your banker can be so useful because you have someone on the outside that's looking in and saying, okay, I like where we're going, but let's see what other things we can do. And they can start helping us kind of identify areas where we may turn a blind eye to it. So that's what, kind of in a short way, it has been rewarding. It has been challenging, but despite the challenges, the rewarding aspects of it have been absolutely, have just taken over. And I'm excited to continue that journey and see where we continue to grow and prepare better for ourselves, for our future, for our generations to come. So that's kind of how it's been for me.
I like that. Thank you for sharing all that. And I'm with you. I like these emojis. It's very interesting and funny. And also, I think I can relate to every one of them from different stages. So, Judy, can you share with us, please, the same thing? How has being in charge of your finances impacted you as a woman?
It is amazing listening to Karen and to Dr. Gates, and we have all have similar stories. I am from a very large family, and I could tell my age and I date myself, but it was at a time when finances were not discussed in the house. All right. So we didn't know anything about money. Um, one of 13, there were 13 kids in the house. And so all I know is at that age, when the mail would come in, my mom would sit it on the corner of the dresser in their room, and there would just accumulate a stack of just letters that came in the mail. Every now and then, the lights may get cut off, the gas may get cut off, and my dad would come in and he would pull a letter from that stack. He would leave home and the lights would magically come back on. All right, we had no clue we had no clue what was going on. And so as a result, I ended up starting to work in corporate America at a very young age. I was 16 years old and knew nothing about money. And I was really getting paid a lot of money. All right. So much so, and at that time they were giving out paper checks. And so much so that on one occasion, when my supervisor, Catherine Ford, came over and handed me my check, I looked at her and I said, "Oh, Miss Ford, can you please hold this? Because I have not spent all the money that you paid me the last time." Well, honey, she looked me in my eye and she said, "We don't do that." And I was like, "I don't know what to do with the money. No clue. I could." So that was my life for a number of years. And I always share when I'm working with clients or workshops, what really is detrimental to us is we often don't know what we don't know. All right. And so for a number of years, I was just sort of out there making the money. And I'd go to my siblings and I said, hey, do y'all want to buy some candy? Do y'all want to go to Six Flags? Those kinds of things I just did not know. And so because of the lessons that I learned were hard learned, I remember when I was working in corporate America, making a lot of money, and I went to Royal Oldsmobile, if anybody remembers that, and I wanted to buy a new car. Well, they didn't allow me to buy a car. I could not figure it out. And I came back and I was telling one of my friends, and they said, did you tell them where you work? And I said, they didn't ask me where I work. She said, you should have told them that and you would have got the car. No clue that credit or anything had any bearing on that. And it's situations and circumstances, experiences like that that serve as the driver or the motivating factor for me to be in the space that I am in now, to make certain that people know that with me as a financial well-being coach, they have more or less an accountability partner that can walk with them. And I like to tell clients, for as long as I've done this, which has been a number of years, you can't surprise me. There's nothing that you've experienced that I haven't seen, maybe even experienced myself. And so that's my motivating factor. And that is why I am here today. And thank you so much for this platform to be able to share that.
I appreciate that. I can so relate to, yes, dating ourselves back in the day that financials were not talked about. So I'm going to
Mm.
start the next question with you, Judy. So, what do you see in the day to day, what you face day to day with women? What do you feel like is the biggest, not the biggest, but the most common mistake or the most common misstep that women make in financials today, and how can they correct that?
A lot of women that I have experienced or been able to work with have made decisions to their detriment based on emotions. All right. Wanting things because someone else had those things, thinking that a title or a specific neighborhoods that they lived in actually define them. And in a lot of cases, they're not able to afford those things financially. If you stop and think about it, in the workplace, if a man gets promoted, he's promoted on promises. But if a woman gets promoted, she has to be promoted based on her performances. And so women tend to overperform, a lot of times doing things that are sort of outside of their realm of responsibility that don't really propel them to the roles that they are thinking that they deserve. And so with the emotional spending, not having a clear plan, I have information that I will share that talk about the difference between leading in your finances and just managing your money. There's a huge difference. And I think that we don't see as many women as we probably would like to, being concise, being strategic, having a plan in place, having an absolute purpose, being driven by their why, the long-term plan. And just as Stephanie mentioned, being able to pay for her kids to go to college at no cost. I didn't have that sense. My kid, he got through college. He started off on an academic scholarship, but that did not last the entire time. And so just not having the financial knowledge to be able to position themselves for where they are trying to go.
Thank you. That is so true, and I appreciate you being vulnerable. I appreciate all of y'all being so vulnerable about the things that you've been through because I can relate to every stage of everything y'all been going through of getting in debt and then getting back out of it and then needing just more coaching and training of what to do. I like what you said, not just managing your finances, but doing something more with it is vital. Especially when I think of women my age who are 50 and over. Um, how can we take what we have right now and grow it and do something more with it and be more secure with what we have? Dr. Yates, what about you? What do you see with your students or with everyone else that you're working with, even people who call in? What do you feel like is the biggest comment, or I apologize, I keep saying biggest, but the most common mistake?
Um, you know, Judy made a good point about how or why we make those mistakes, acting on emotion. And so I will echo what she said there. And what I'm seeing is those emotions manifest themselves into credit and debt issues. And so lately, I've been spending a lot of time with people, counseling them about how to get out of debt. And what I'm learning is that it's either the emotion or not enough education that gets them there. You know, they didn't understand all of the details of what they were signing up for. They had a knee-jerk reaction. They bought this thing or took out this debt for an emotional reason. So we've been spending a lot of time with folks just trying to help them get through that and come up with a plan. And again, going back to your first question and that feeling of empowerment, that's what I'm noticing is the outcome. When we work together and put together a plan to get someone from a place where they feel like, you know, the sky is falling to a little bit of hope and a little bit of light, it just makes all the difference in the world, because I talk to a lot of folks who just get so discouraged that they just don't deal with it, and then the problems kind of
Yeah.
compound. So I would say I'm seeing a lot of issues with debt and credit. And I think and you mentioned students, the same thing, because with younger people, they think they've got time, and they do, you know, to overcome it. But wouldn't you rather spend that time doing something else other than getting out of debt? You know, and again, kind of talking in circles, but I think some of that comes down to the education, that they don't know how much debt is too much debt. They don't know, you know, because just like Judy, in my house, we didn't talk about it. So I didn't know. And I just thought I had to have this thing. And I thought that taking out debt was the way to do it. So I get it. I understand why folks get to where they are, but I think there just aren't enough people like us to help people get to a better place.
Hmm. And I appreciate all of you so much, because this is exactly why I wanted y'all to come together and do this. Karen, how about you? What do you see?
So I will say I'll echo the same of debt and you know not knowing where to go, not having a plan. One thing that I love looking at statistics, and so I was doing a little bit of research. And women right now, currently where we are, women get paid less than men according to the UN. The UN women is about 20%. So for every dollar that a man makes, a woman makes 80 cents. So we get paid less. Okay. Then we also spend more time out of the workforce to take care of loved ones, kids. So that's less time putting in towards Social Security, retirement. And on top of that, we live longer. And so when you look at those three things, when we talk about having a plan, I always say this whenever I'm talking to women, we can't afford to take a step back in
Mm,
our finances. We can't afford to not be involved, to not ask questions, to not learn, to not grow, to not have a plan because, or ignore, right? Because if we continue to ignore, if we continue to just say, oh, I'll worry about that later. Maybe we're in our younger years and we'll say, we'll worry about that later, but we can't afford that. And so that's one of those things when we talk about the power of a plan, the power of motivation. If you don't have something that's encouraging to look forward, to look ahead, I don't know about y'all, but I don't like sitting here and looking at how I'm spending money and see money come out of my bank account. It's not fun. But when I attach something that motivates me to it, it challenges me to dig deeper, to understand better, to make better choices for myself. And so I think that's one of the things when we talk about finances and what's the common thing, I feel like a lot of the foundation is one, we're not having conversations about this, which is why I'm super happy that we are having conversations more about this. We're talking about how we've made mistakes. I tell my students whenever I'm talking to high school students, I'm like, learn from us. If you can learn from us and not do what we did, then you have a leg up on this. And sometimes the reality is that we may make mistakes, but that's not the end. That's not the end of that road. It's not a dead end. There's a way for us to get out. We just have to ask those questions, look around, look at our resources and kind of carry it out. But one thing is for sure, we can't afford it. We can't afford to take a step back and not be involved. And so that's one of the things I would say is that we have to be involved with this. Because there's a lot. There's a lot to look at, and we want to be informed and be prepared.
Thank you so much. I appreciate the urgency. And you all three have hit on something that I would love to hear and would see everybody in the chat if you can relate to this. The financials, when you see yourself getting into a situation where you're not really happy, or you find that you have been thrown into a situation you're not real happy with, the emotions take over before you really want to try to address it. You've got to deal with the emotional part. And I know I did. I'd love to see anyone else who can relate to that, the emotion of where you're at compared to what you feel like you should be or where you want to be. That takes a front row seat. I know growing up, like I said, the you didn't talk about it a lot. And all I knew was there was a checking and a saving account. I also can relate to a lot of women our age that growing up, women weren't allowed to have their own finances. You had to have a man, a brother, somebody, because the financial institution would not allow women to be in charge of their financials. And that has changed. Thank you so much to all of the women who have gone and fought for that, because now we can, and now we're getting more empowered by all of the intelligence that goes along with that of what to do, but getting past the emotions so you can take that next step, like you said, Karen, of okay, this is where you're at. And sometimes you do need to get someone like one of these three amazing women who is not emotionally invested with you personally. And you may feel like, oh, well, I'm ashamed to let anyone in my family know where I'm at. Coming to someone who can come and help you say, okay, here's your tissue box. And we understand that you're emotional about it right now, but we got a plan and it's going to be okay. And just the relief of knowing that. And I'm saying that from experience of being able to get in front of someone who could actually step back and say, okay, you're not as far down in the hole as you think you are. And that was very helpful for me. So would y'all please take time individually just to share with us just some practical solutions about what you do on whether it's a day-to-day basis or just either professionally or personally, um, to help you stay ahead of things, and how that can also help people who are watching and listening. What are some practical steps? And we'll go ahead and start with you, Karen.
All right. So I will say my husband and I, we have monthly budgeting meetings. We sit down, we look at where we are, and being in this world that I teach fin ed, and then this is kind of one of those things that it sparks a fire in me. I'm like, okay, this is where we are. Like, this is what we need to do. This is the plan. Like, this is what we're paying this month. Having a counterpart that helps kind of no, like this balancing that is helpful. One thing that I like to do too is help me control my spending is I go grocery shopping with my brother. We keep each other on track. He sees me in the aisle that I'm not supposed to be in. He goes, Karen, get out of that aisle. So we keep each other accountable. I think it's about building a community of people that are supporting you in that journey and knowing that you're trying to make changes to better your financial situation. So I think it starts with the community that you have wrapped around you that is going to continue to push you forward. I will also say it's about, like I said, I had to sit with my banker and I continue to do this and connect with her and talk about now that we set a plan. The plan was the ultimate goal was be a homeowner. We got there. Now let's look at what's coming next, right? And so building that relationship with your banker, because here's the thing, your finances change, but having someone who's been through that or like a coach that can see where you've been and what you have achieved, celebrate those. Okay, we're going to pause and we're going to celebrate the things that we've been able to achieve, the things that we've been able to change and grow from, but then also look ahead and think about, what do I need to adjust now? Where do I need to keep going? Because that's the part of the journey. So I would say, have that group that's with you and encouraging you and challenging you. You also want to make sure you're building a relationship with your banker. And I would just like to add, from the side of Regions, knowing that there's a lot of resources that we have online. If y'all don't mind, I just want to share our online website, because this is the cool thing, y'all. You don't have to bank with Regions. This is resources that's available to anyone. So if you go to our Regions Next Steps website, there, when I say a plethora of information out here for you, we have these advice hub centers. That's what I like to call them. So if you are looking more into budgeting and saving, we have a hub center that takes you through all the information and advice we have on that. Homeownership, credit. You have a student that's about to go to college, you better sit them in front of the computer and have them look and read through these articles and listen to these podcasts so that they can start learning and listening to these things. Financial hardship, those are things that, if you're not experiencing it now, you could possibly experience it in the future. So how do we prepare for that? Retirement and planning for that. So these are a ton of hub centers. Medical debt, we have a coursework or a hub center dedicated to medical debt. It is the number one leading cause of bankruptcy in the United States. So
Wow.
there are articles, resources, tools, classes that you can take to help understand, one, how do I negotiate that medical bill? How do I manage those pocket healthcare costs? What resources do hospitals have? What tools are available to me to kind of help me in this situation? So there's a lot of stuff out here. Like I said, a plethora of information out there for you completely free. We have our next step courses. These are classes, 5 minutes, topics ranging from credit to budgeting to taking care of a loved one and how it can affect your finances to managing those out of pocket healthcare costs for medical expenses, as well as starting a business and what does that look like. So the topics of these classes can vary. We have podcasts. I always tell people I hate doing the dishes, y'all. So it's a chore I refuse to do, but when it's my turn to do it, I pop on a podcast and I learn something, right? And that way I'm killing two birds with one stone. I am learning something new, I'm growing in my knowledge, but I'm also doing a chore that I absolutely despise. So use those things, use those tools to kind of help motivate you and push you and learn something. We also have webinars. These are classes that we offer every single month for free. You can sign up, listen to them. You miss one month, come back the next month, and we'll have new dates and new times for you to log in. So, like I said, ton of free resources. We have a budget tracker that you can download. The 52-week savings challenge. This is an awesome one because there are 3 different challenges. You have a 10K challenge, a 5K challenge, or a $1,378 challenge. It tells you how much to save every week. And as you continue, you then at the end of the year reach that challenge. So a great way to start that saving journey, and the format is already set for you. You just have to remember to save every week, or you can even set an automatic savings transfer with your online banking. So lots, like I said, lots of great resources and tools. We have our calculator center, and we also have a virtual learning center for kids as well. So those are things, those are tools that are available. But I'll also say, remember that your bankers are resources for you as well. So if you have any questions, if you bank with someone, go talk to your bank. Your bank may offer things that you may not know about, right? So if you bank with Regions, we have a Green Insights that's attached to your online banking, and that's a budgeting tool. And you can use the budgeting tool to help you learn how you're using your money and ways that you can cut expenses. So those are great resources. So one thing I would say is build that community, right? Build a relationship with your banker and check out resources. Continue to ask questions, continue to learn. Because here's the thing, when you and I come to the table and we end up making decisions, we're ready to sign the dotted line. We want to make sure that we have all the information on our end to make sure that the choice that we're making is going to benefit us. So that's why this is important. Having those tools and those resources, knowledge is power. So take as much information as possible and add it to your tool belt. So that way you can feel confident and empowered in those decisions that you're making.
Oh, thank you, Karen. I did not know. I learned about all this when you were at our symposium. with Momentum Works last year, and I was blown away. I did not know that they offered that. Thank you for sharing all of that. And I love that knowledge is power, and that is what we are doing here today. So, Judy, can you share with us some of the things that you have found that were solutions for you that you offer to others?
Absolutely. And I wanted to just sort of piggyback on some things that I mentioned earlier when it came to financial education. If you visit our website, which is www.operationhope.org, there is a financial index that covers, it's a mapping for the entire United States. Operation Hope provides this in partnership with Experian, which is one of the three major credit reporting agencies. You can click on any state and get an average credit score for that state. You can drill down and go to any city, get an average credit score for that city, even down to the zip codes. That's the intentionality that Operation Hope has in place. And it helps to make us proactive when we are working with clients to get them. Karen talked about home ownership. With me being a HUD certified housing counselor, I work with individuals all the time. I talked about the motivation, the why, having a goal, those kinds of things. And a lot of times they may have a desire to become a homeowner, but the credit is not where it needs to be. Their debt to income ratio is too high, those kinds of things. So as a financial coach and a HUD housing counselor, I can help to align a program or to help them to reduce their finances in so many ways that they can not only be in a position to be pre-approved when they go to Regions or whoever, who is absolutely a great partner, but there's no question about that. In addition to doing the counseling on the front end, we do post-purchase counseling so that once they do get into the home, they're able to keep the home. And so these are just some slides that I had that I wanted to share, but I'm going to go to the last one because today is July 2nd, but tomorrow, July 3rd, is National Compliment Your Mirror Day. I bet y'all did not know that. All right. Who knew there was such a thing? And so I sent out an email every month with financial tips and advice for my clients or anyone else. And so the analogy that I am making with the National Compliment Your Mirror Day is that your finances, your credit score, your bank statement, your debt load, those kinds of things, they present an image as well. And in that email, I share tips, advice, instructions as to how they can really be satisfied when they look in their financial mirror. One of the statements that the article makes is mirrors don't lie, and neither does your credit report. And so a credit report is just a compilation of your financial fingerprint. And so if anyone's interested in receiving this article, Darla, I can send it to
Okay,
you and definitely share that with them. But let me
thank
get
you.
back with what I wanted to share, what I talked about earlier. Um, and we've already talked about that. Can you see my screen?
Not yet.
Oh no.
It went away. There you go.
All right, that's not my slide. Okay,
There
that's
you
the one I wanted. I started talking about the difference between managing your finances versus leading your finances. And these are just a few examples that we use or we implement, we sharing with clients at Operation Hope. When you're managing your finances, you're simply just paying your bills on time. All right. But if you want to really become empowered with financial knowledge and accessing resources that are available to you, you won't just pay your bills on time. You will create a strategic financial plan. All right. We talk to clients sometimes, and I always like to say there is no one size that fits all. There may be one client that, they love tracking their finances with the apps, some with spreadsheets, some just pen and paper, those kinds of things. And then there are others who just, oh, it's just in my head. Okay. If you're like me, when I walk from one room to the other, I forget what I walked in there for. So I don't keep mine in my head. And so that's the difference between managing and leading. Sticking to a budget, that's good, but that's simply managing. But to be a leader in your finances, you want to set goals. If you aim at nothing, you will hit it every time. And so it's important to set goals. One of my weaknesses, and it's just been a part of me for a long time. I love going to thrift stores and yard sales, okay? And I can just get out of control with my spending. What I had to do as a financial coach to myself was set aside a specific dollar amount to say, I'm only going to spend this much. And that's worked out really great for me. And so you've got to have plans in place. I've got to have plans for that dollar. I like to share in my workshops that Dave Ramsey says to give every dollar a name. Well, I tell people, if anybody knows Dave, tell him that Judy said you not only need to give them a name, but you need to give them a job. All right. Because if I went, hey, Stephanie, she'd just go, hi, Judy. But if I said, Stephanie, I need you to get up, to close the door, to bring me water, those kinds of things, it puts actions behind my words. That's how we teach our clients to manage their money. If you don't manage your money, believe you me, your money will manage you. Tracking spending, that's simply managing. But if you're making investment decisions, that's for the long haul. And those apps, I can tell you that Karen just shared, they are amazing. I refer clients that way quite a bit. Doing the day-to-day task with your finances as opposed to building generational wealth. Homeownership is a way that we can build generational wealth. We also try and encourage our clients to have a savings account, but to think about savings account with compound interest, those kinds of things, to think about investing. I use the analogy and I share it so often with my clients. I'll often say, how many of you guys visit Starbucks? And I mean, most of the room, their hands go up. And if you think about what it costs for one drink or anything at Starbucks, that's quite a bit. So I encourage them, what they can do to offset that is buy at least a fraction of Starbucks stock so that when they roll up and that line is wrapped around the building, they give themselves a pat on the back and they say, hey, girl, hey, you're getting paid. All right. So that's just some of the things. And finally, reacting to financial challenges, that's managing, but proacting, taking control and educating yourself because savings is not optional. We always like to remember what happened in March of 2020. All right. There was a global pandemic. And so people lost employment, not because of anything they did, but because that there were situations beyond their control. For our clients that had heeded our advice and coaching to save 3 to 6 months worth of living expenses, they were all right for quite some time. And so there is a difference between managing and leading. Leading in finances means being proactive. This is just sort of doubling back on some of the things that we have said earlier. It all begins with a mindset shift. You have to be the driver of your own success. If you get in a car and you just sit there and you call your friends and you brag and you wave at people, say, oh my God, I have a car. You're just sitting there. You're not going anywhere. But in order to accomplish things, to set a goal, to reach a destination, you've got to be in a position to crank that car, to operate it, and to be able to drive. And so have a positive mindset, have a desire to want to improve your financial well-being. A few steps, we've already talked about those, starting with financial literacy because knowledge is power. You want to set financial goals, meet with a financial advisor. We are not financial advisors at Operation Hope. We're coaches. What is the role of a coach? I'm a big sports fan. I have 7 brothers, and so I had no choice. But a coach simply stands on the sideline. He stands there with a level of confidence because he's already had interactions, he's already had training, he's already had meetings with the players on the field. They have specific roles, specific positions, and he's trusting them to carry that out. That's our role as a coach. We empower people with information. We provide with them to them a list of strategies, things that may or may not work for them, and we embrace them on their journey to financial well-being. And so those are just some of the things that we do. And this is a shameless plug. I told you I'm a visual learner. And so I came up with this thought in my mind so many years ago when I was doing this about head over heels about women and their finances. All right. A lot of times they're more concerned about an outward appearance as opposed to developing their financial well-being. And so I'm saying that if you put that head, if you get a financial mindset over the heels, and that's, maybe high heels, low heels, any kind of thing. Listen, tennis shoes are really popular now. Ladies are wearing them in all different colors and those kinds of things. But once you position yourself, you can walk into any room. I love, Darla, that you brought out the fact that women for so long were not able to do certain things. I think it was only until 1974 when
Yep.
the Equal Credit Opportunity Act was put in
Mhm.
place. Before then, a woman could not have a loan in her name. If she was divorced, she couldn't have a bank account, all of
Yeah.
those things. And we have come a long way. And so I'm just encouraging you all to continue to educate yourself, to empower yourself. The services that's provided at Operation Hope are at no cost and they're confidential. And so it's not an optional, it is something that's obligational. And so, again, that's my newsletter that's going out tomorrow. What does your financial reflection say about you? And all of that information can be derived from credit report, bank statements, savings account, and how you're actually living.
Thank you, Judy. Dr. Yates,
You're
I would love to hear from you. What is something that has really propelled you that you like to share with your with the people that you advise and the people that you work with, and even right now, all these women that are watching right now?
Boy, I don't know that I can add anything that Karen and Judy haven't already said, but maybe just putting it in my own words. I think what's been very powerful is having that guide map. And we think of that in terms of goal setting. And so, but the thing is, and I mentioned this quite a bit when I give workshops, we can't just set goals and then forget about them. Like that old commercial, set it and forget it. We have to check in periodically. So, that's something. And I think Karen mentioned this, having those regular check-ins. And one of the things, I think Karen mentioned having the check-in with a spouse, but I love when families really embrace this as an entire unit, because finances impact everyone. And so so maybe the little ones can't contribute to the overall goal setting so much, but they need to buy in to the action steps that we're going to take to reach those goals. So, for example, it was hilarious when my kids were small. The older one would say to the younger one, "No, we can't get that candy unless mommy has a coupon."
I
Because
love it.
we were on a mission and
Yeah,
everybody
love
knew
it.
what the mission was. But more seriously, you know, at one time I was a single parent and I'm thinking, oh my goodness, how am I going to put these kids through college? And I thought, well, this is not my responsibility alone. I don't have help from another parent, but let me get these boys in here and let them understand their responsibility. I'm going to do everything that I can, and my finances say this is what I can do. And this is non trivial, and it will get you to this list of schools. But if you want to go beyond this list of schools, then your job is to get the grades, get the scholarships, come up with the rest of it. Maybe even that means getting a part-time job. But my point is, we had those conversations early and often. So we weren't sitting there at high school graduation trying to figure out, okay, how are we going to pay for the next step? They knew what the budget was, they knew what their responsibility was. And I just saw somebody comment on this in the chat. We were all on a mission to get these kids through college, and everybody had a part that they had to play in that. And that was actually empowering for me as well, because we had this goal, but I was honest with them about what I could contribute to it and what they had to do. They weren't on their own, I wasn't on my own, but we all had a part to play. So just kind of wrapping up to what you were asking, I think setting goals and having those check-ins and getting everyone on board, even if they don't necessarily like it, at least they need to know this is what we're trying to do, this is how we're going to do it, and this is your part in that.
I like that. I like how you have included them in the decision making. Not only did it empower you, it empowers them because they have to make those decisions and they get to learn how to make better decisions as they're growing into adulthood. And they do understand the weightiness of it, and it's easier for them when they see the weight of everything, paying the bills, and what does that take, and oh, okay, so magically there's gas in the car. No, 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 no. And all the things that I believe that we need to bring them in, even if they are, even if you're not on, how do I say this? So even if you are following through and everything is going great with your financials, bringing your kids in right now and helping them understand why it is going so well and how they can continue that, and giving them the responsibility of not only just having their own checking account while they're under your roof and learning how to handle all of that, but how do you do the investments? What's the next thing? How do I, like you said, Judy, how do I stay ahead of it and not just survive? How do I thrive and stay in control of all of it? So thank you for everything that each one of you have brought to the table today.
Momentum's virtual trainings are made possible with the support of Protective Life, Blue Cross Blue Shield of Alabama, and America's Thrift. Find the full list of sponsors as well as additional resources for women leaders on our website at momentumleaders.org. Thanks for taking the time to invest in you, and remember to like, subscribe, and share our channel. We love reading thoughts and comments, so you can leave those for us here too. You can also connect with us on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn by searching at Momentum Leaders.